We are live right now.
Hey, Modern Commerce, welcome back again. You're here with Casey and John. As always, we've got a special guest today. We'll get to that in just a minute because first, John has a read from our sponsors. John?
Absolutely. So, Casey, Q4 is almost here. I'm sure you're making lots of ads. Casey's a creative strategist, as you guys may know. If you run ads on Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, anywhere creative matters, chances are, creative testing is important. Chances are you're not doing enough of it. The main reason people aren't doing enough of it is because it's hard to come up with new ideas to test, and making new ads all the time is a grind. Our sponsor today is Pencil. Pencil solves all that. The AI analyzes your ad account. It determines which ads and elements are currently working for you, which ones aren't working for you. With that information, it takes all of those assets that you've given it, and it gives you new ads to test from them, right? And it even writes your copy for you. So it just cranks out ads for you. It's basically kind of a creative analyst and a designer all in one. It's free to try. So just go to trypencil.com to give it a shot. When you sign up, use code ModCom15. That way, when you upgrade to a paid plan, you'll get 15% off, because you will upgrade to a paid plan. You'll get hooked. Yes. So shout out to Pencil, but I am excited for the guest today. It is the one, the only Mr. Nick Shackelford, aka Shack, aka Poppy Shack, aka Nicky Shacks, aka the Facebook ads godfather,
aka the Shack Attack.
Oh, sorry, I missed one.
Yeah, there's honestly, and first off, shout out to Pencil. Chase, he's a good dude, really, really good dude. He's been really kind to us. So I want to say, like, gratitude, gratefulness for all that guy that he does, and he just really good vibes. If you haven't had a chat with him, he's a great dude on the Twitters. So definitely shout that out. But I am grateful for John and Casey in this one. Dude, this one has been something that I've been going back and forth on for quite a while, and it's something that I'm going to spend more and more time thinking about and going over. I've done a lot of thought works on this stuff, and I actually have some slides to share that can guide us, because we all know John gets a little bit wordy at times. And look, it's a very Batman and Robin approach to this, meaning, like, some of us are going to lead, some of us have superpowers, some of us are just really rich. Some of us wears tights, some of us don't, and we're going to go back and forth on these shenanigans. But I will tell you this right now, and no matter where you look, no matter what you're doing, someone somewhere is talking about not collecting cash, extending payment terms, firing people, hiring people, outsourcing. There's just so much of this weird worry around it. But yet the world that you live in, the world that you're probably listening to or binging, is we still have to grow. We still have revenue targets, and we still got to get shit done. And so something along these things that I'm exploring, and look, these are not fully baked concepts and ideas. I'm still in the thought process of doing this, and John and I often go back and forth on this. So I'm excited to explore some of these topics. But the core of what today is going to be, what does the team look like in a potential recession, or recession proofing the marketing team? And we're speaking from a perspective of an agency that works with, at any given time, over 100 brands, whether it's social, search, content, SMS, email, like you name it, we're doing something in this space, and we have a lot of point of contacts. And we're even more specifically underneath that folder, John and I spend a lot of time on the conversation parts. John, I don't know off the top of my head, I have to check the calendar, but any given week, how many brands are you talking to does it make sense for us to be together basis?
Like not brands that currently work with us.
Yes.
On any given week, I'm talking to, like, I would say 5 to 10 brands minimum. Like some weeks heavier than that, but I'm average it out and say 5 to 10, somewhere in there. Like new e-commerce brands. So, like, when you think about that, there's just like a lot of looks over several weeks. Like, that's a lot of looks at different kinds of e-commerce businesses in, like, different situations, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, and it all comes down to this idea of, like, one of the most common questions, honestly, it's like, who do I hire internally? Should I hire you guys, or should I just hire somebody internally to do it? Like, what do you guys provide? And, like, who do I need on my team and all of this, right? And that, like, it's a confusion for especially founders, right? Like, who do I hire? So let's talk there. And I actually want to start there and say to you, Nick, like, this is the question I want to ask you. Who are the key hires to make either internally or a partner, like an agency or vendor partner specifically for marketing in early stages of an e-commerce. So let's say, I mean, should we cover pre-revenue? Do you want to cover pre-revenue here? Or do you want to start at 1 million a year in revenue, or where do you want to start?
I think it's safe to say pre-revenue because they're still in the planning phase. So even if they're not revenue based, it's not something that they're going to be able to get away from, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I definitely want to think about that. And there's we look at it in two different core areas, which is like the simplest way. It's generation and preservation. And so I like to call it a dance. It is a dance. It's like, are you generating? Are you preserving? You still have to spend to do both. Like, just because you have a bunch of customers, you still pay Klaviyo and you still have to have the list. You might only pay to hit some of the list, but you're still suppressing or keeping some of the list. In the initial structure, if I go back and forth of the generation phase, specifically, this is what I'm thinking of. In any of this world, John, I'll throw this mic back to you in a second. The generation phase has some of these areas, whether you're pre-revenue, generally speaking, and I will call this out, this is to those that are already generating revenue. If you're pre-revenue, you're probably not thinking about building an affiliate marketing team, although I do think that's a smart idea. You know, you come from that background a little bit more than myself, but I don't jump to affiliate marketing right away unless I already have the offer nailed in, if I already have the page nailed in, if I already know what I'm doing and have some baseline metrics. There's no network you're going to that's going to accept a brand new offer that has not even been tested at all. So I will say that one. But you will need some sort of media buyer, whether that's you or that's someone that you're having to hire, an affiliate marketer that's, as again, if something's already been generated, if something's already working, a copywriter and a creator. Copywriter is different than a creator in my interpretation of this, because a copywriter is probably writing some sort of the ads, some of the emails, some of the SMS, and some of the page copy. The creator, this might be a little bit more controversial than some other want to say. And I don't think you should own the creator, because then you're married to that style and that brand forever. Structured and Nick, right? I cannot leave this. But the creator or a person that's doing stuff, I think it's extremely important that they are generating consistent content and they're incentivized to do this. Thoughts?
Yeah. I think that I want to just make a few clarifications. When you say affiliate marketer, I actually think that as someone who it could be anything for your brand. So it could be someone who finds affiliates to run traffic for you. It could be somebody who gets you like PR or publicity, gets you published on content sites, for affiliate commissions. Or it could be someone who's driving an influencer effort, like a free influencer effort, where it's like, we're really going to push into seeding. And I'm saying that in the pre-rev phase, right? So in the pre-rev phase, a lot of brands nowadays are getting traction, not with paid right away, bootstrapped brands. With backed brands, it's maybe not this story. But bootstrap brands, a lot of times their early traction is actually coming from, some kind of just organic IG, and that's going to be your creator, or seeding product to influencers, that kind of thing. So that's all encompassing that affiliate marketer role. It could be any of those, especially in pre-rev.
I agree with you on this. And actually, in this stage, if I were to do a caveat, say you're a brand that's doing some rev stateside, and I've had great conversations with the team at DFO, great conversations with Shamak, great conversations with Jumbleberry and all these ones. Say you're winning and you have the offer, the page, or something going right now. Take that product, that offer, and go abroad. Go launch into a new market. It might be English speaking specifically, or you get generalized localization of content, localization of ads or page. Take what you have, tell them it's working, give them the payout that they need. It was generally around like $30-$40. Send it into a new market. That's something I do fully recommend. If you're winning right now and you want to generate money, doing the lowest barrier to entry, John, what is it like? You have the metric of, is it easy? What is?
Yeah. Impact, confidence, and ease. So how impactful is a marketing initiative, anything, right? A new traffic channel, whatever. How impactful could it be? How confident are you that the impact will be positive, and how easy is it to implement? So, I mean, what you're saying is like getting affiliates to run traffic for you at a CPA deal. If you can afford a $30, $40, $50 CPA for most products, the impact might not be here. Like maybe not a ton of affiliates will run it. But the confidence is 100%, right? It's like a 10 out of 10 because you're not sacrificing anything, right? Like you're just only paying on sales, and the ease of implementation is not that difficult on the right affiliate networks. We have a brand that, you know, one of their offers, like 10-20% of their revenue just comes from CPA payout affiliates.
Yep.
It's the best CPAs, right? They can't scale it because it's all people sending email. It's all like, you know, affiliates sent with big email lists or whatever. But that, you know, it's super nice supplemental, you know, conversions.
And then we get into preservation, which is more of like the retention area, the elements of like, cool, they're already in the brand. What do we need to make sure that they stay with us or that they're falling in love with us overall? You need that email marketer, an SMS marketer, which early on, I would say pre-rev, under 5 mil, even under a mil, this could potentially be the same person. Like, I don't think you need to be super segmented. And especially if you're leveraging Klaviyo, which look, I love Klaviyo, they're great people, but those rates are not always amazing. I will say this. But if you have the ability to have a dedicated email person and SMS, I think it's excessive at the start. It can be the same person. Just make sure the messages are congruent. It actually probably should be. Copywriter, you already have a little bit of an overlap. They should be dynamic enough to write acquisition and preservation because it's not as aggressive or it's not needing to be salesy as much. You probably will find the revenue preservation copywriter before the generator, just kind of what it is. And then overall designer, which is not a creator. The designer at this point, yes, they could be used to edit some gifties or graphics or what have you on the acquisition side, but this is primarily for the email side of things.
Yeah, and this is where I'm gonna. What's a nice way to say argue? I argue with you all the time.
Yeah, this is just normal.
You're gonna be
here
where I'm going to have a normal John and Nick discussion with you. Like before, I was agreeing with you, and that was probably super weird. I don't want you feeling comfortable on the podcast. So I'll start arguing with you so you're more comfortable. I think that all of those at certain rev levels, most likely, like they can be the same person. Now, maybe that person who can, you know, email, SMS, copywriting, design, do all of that, they might be a little harder to find. But honestly, if you can, that is great at that pre-rev, 1 million, maybe $5 million phase, because you're going to be so much more nimble, you know, with that person. And I say that because Casey used to be that person at EGM. When we would take on email, he was just like one man show. He would do all of it. Right. Or one team. Right. So at pre-rev, unless you're backed, you're probably not going to be hiring a team like a structured, but at, you know, 5 million, 1 million, it makes a lot of sense. Because yeah, like all of that, making the processes to make sure like the messaging is congruent across channels and everything, like it's just taken care of for you when you hire one team. And a lot of times, like especially, and then if you're at the stage where you're hiring all 4 of those people, that's where you look at a team, right? Like that's one of the biggest things I would say about structured. This isn't like a structured pitch, but one of the biggest things I would say about a good email marketing agency is that a lot of times if you look at the team members and the allocation of resources that you get versus what you could hire in-house, like it's actually a cost benefit to just hire a vendor to do this.
I totally agree with you. And there's one more element that I think I'll showcase on it that kind of gets played across all of it. So on the slide side, let's throw that up when we get a chance. It's kind of the team that kind of sits across everybody. And personally, again, this is the team that we'll go into. I'll break it down like a little bit more of the revenue states because I do want to have this to be a good discussion. The analyst, I think this is extremely important, especially if you are not the person to dig into the tools, whether it's a triple whale, whether it's a Northbeam, whether it's going to be Hyros, whatever you're looking, whether it's just GA, whether it's just Facebook dashboard, somebody outside of the media buyer that's getting a second opinion, that's looking at the modeling, depending on how your conversion cycle is going to be, an editor overall. I think this is something that some brand, I've been getting more and more recommendation. We talked about this yesterday a little bit, or actually no, the tweet today, which was, we love email. I've talked to many, many brands and a lot of their email leads are not in-house. I think it's difficult for people to find a quality email marketer that's not getting paid tons and tons of cash to go work on a solo brand. When you get big enough, this happens to our team all the time. Our email designers or email leads, email strategists get poached left and right because they're like, look, I'm burnt out. I want to go work with one brand. It's tough to find those often. If you find one, keep them, pay them what they want, incentivize them with a percentage of revenue or the growth of the list, whatever it is going to be. But it's really difficult to find an internal email marketer. I'll just get that. editor and admin. Editor is important for all the things that we talked about, why a creator and designer is important. You need somebody that's giving most likely your creative lead, or at the time at the early stages, the founder's making a lot of the branded decisions. You want someone that understands the platforms, that is editing and such. And then admin, it's another fancy way of communication officer. This person still needs to think about the campaigns, still needs to think about who's getting what at what time and when do things go live. And sometimes this is an area like on our team, dude. If it wasn't for Karen, or Ruthie or Andrew early on, we'd be in a very world of hurt for a lot of the stuff that we're trying to get done, because the lack of communication, no matter how good you are, no matter how beautiful it's going to be, if it gets there at the wrong time and it doesn't get there quick enough, it's all a complete loss. And then lastly, and I was super reluctant to include this, but having a developer. And I can still be convinced on this is not necessary, especially as a full-time, but I do think you can find an outsourced team on a per project basis that you trust and that they're your go-to. We have plenty of these ones. They're not full-time with us by any means, but we know when we need something, we go get them.
Yeah, on the developer point, I do think you can get a long way without one.
I agree.
You will hit a point in growth, and I'm not going to say a number, but you'll hit a point in growth where it's just a point where you're running a lot of traffic and a lot of conversions. The reason I don't want to say a number is because, that could be 10, 20 million, $50 million if you're selling a $500 or $1,000 product, or it could be $1 million if you sell a $10 product. But there will be a point where you're running just a lot of traffic, a lot of conversions are coming through, and ultimately the cost to have a freelance developer, have a developer help you, even if you're on a platform like Shopify, with site speed or with customized landing page, something like that, will be worth it, right? Because a small improvement in conversions will make a huge impact for you. But you could get a long way with that one. And I would say it's kind of like one of those things that it's when you're in optimization / scaling phase. You know what I mean? If you're if you're pre-revenue right now and you just looked at Nick's slide, and this is where I want to transition to, you're pre-revenue right now and you're looking at Shaq's slide and you're like, okay, so I need to go, I just got a round of funding and I need to go hire 12 people, I need to go hire 12 people for my marketing team. I actually don't think you need to go hire 12 people. Like, I think there's a lot of those ones there. The first one is like, yeah, don't hire a developer yet, unless you're selling tech. But if you're selling e-commerce, yeah, don't hire a developer yet. So that's how I want to actually transition. Actually, I'll let you respond to that. And then that's what I want to transition to is like, can you give me an example of like what this looks like, what this org structure looks like between internal hires and vendors, external vendors, for some brands that we either work with or that
So I will let me show you one thing real quick. I want to get into this topic because I've been thinking about how to like structure it, and I've bucketed it into 3 phases right now: 0 to 5 million, 5 to 10, and then 10 to 15. That's like this areas in which like we know how to service. We've been there, and our business personally, like our business isn't, and like I'm only going to speak to something that I've personally been a part of. Not growing other businesses. We've worked with higher than this, but our company, Structured Company, the core one, I'm not going to go above the 15 mil mark just because we as a company, we're not there yet, right? So I'm not going to be.
Yeah, I want to caveat and say that's to me a little strange, and we stay where we are. That's fine. To me, it's a little strange, but just for people listening, we're primarily talking about e-commerce D2C brands, and org on a $15 million e-commerce brand versus org on a $15 million agency is very different. A $15 million agency has like so many more bodies than a $15 million e-commerce brand. So Nick is saying that, hey, I've only ever grown my own company to $15 million. So I don't want to get, out of that and speak to something I don't know, which I totally respect, but we are speaking to so we're going to kind of keep it at, we're mostly speaking to e-commerce brands here, but yeah, we're going to keep it to kind of that 15, maybe 20 million zone and not really speak to what happens at 40 or 50 million, even though we have seen that, because that's where you want to stay. And I respect it. I respect it.
Even on that, like, yes, I could go there and talk through it, but I still think and I'll take a page out of the book of Colin McGuire, which is like nowadays, August 25th, like it's commerce, baby, commerce, right? Like commerce is like, I inside joke. I apologize for dropping it here. Regardless of what we're doing right now, we are all a distribution of marketing. We're all a distribution of message, and we just choose to monetize it with some physical good.
Right.
I might be making content. For instance, Sean. I love Sean. Sean owns Ridge Wallets. That man just gave away a truck. That was just content. There's no reason a wallet company is giving away a beautiful, beautiful car / truck / whatever it is in hopes of selling more wallets. Like, I get the strategy. I understand it fully, wholeheartedly, but that man's making content to generate interest to sell a wallet.
We all sell different. Interest in traffic, eyeballs are ultimately what anybody needs to sell anything. I mean, look at Modern Commerce. We just did an ad read right at the beginning of this podcast, right? We're selling something different. We're selling advertising space. We're literally just selling the eyeballs that we generate. But we're making the content to generate the eyeballs. Whereas within e-commerce, you're making the content to generate eyeballs by paying to put the content in front of people, with, at least if you're running a lot of paid media, and then you're monetizing with a physical good. I mean, you could technically be monetizing with the same thing, right? Like we've seen that where, a content site runs ads just to get people to their content site, and it's ad arbitrage. It doesn't work super well on Facebook anymore, but that's kind of your point, right?
Totally. And I think at the grand scheme of things, why I feel myself, yourself, and us in general can speak upon this is because all we do is we live in the world of generating rev. So if I'm looking at the people that we're talking about or working with, these would be the core areas that I'd be looking to hire or build against, because at 0 to 5 million, something's working. It worked. You might have had a junior marketer. You might have had somebody to get you that initial phase. You yourself as the owner might be the one running the traffic at this point. And that's oftentimes how it is. Like, the amount of times that we've inherited a business or a brand, and it's like, hey, I know everything intimately, and I'm the owner. I was like, yeah, because you're a marketer at heart, and you figured out how to sell a specific product. That happens all the time. Media buying core. What is core? When I initially say it to you, John, it's Facebook, Instagram, and Google. That's core. And some people at this point in stage, because of where TikTok is, core might be TikTok. Now, I don't think it is.
Yeah,
some people believe it is.
Just to be clear, that's for D2C native, not Amazon native, I guess. Yeah. Yes.
I mean, I consider marketplaces a beast of its own. Oftentimes when someone's building a brand on a marketplace, it's not a brand, it's a product that they put a cool name on.
Right. Oftentimes, yes. So that is for a D2C native. That is, like their first sales channel is on their website, their own website.
Correct. Then you have multimedia designer. I didn't say ad designer. I said anything designer, someone that's creating for you. Yep. That goes right into an editor. Designer and editor are not the same thing. An editor is someone that's repurposing what has already been created, potentially from a creator, potentially from other sources, potentially from agencies, whatever it's going to be, but they are editing stuff that the designer has been making. Oftentimes, this is the same person. I don't believe it should be, especially at this phase of where you're at. Email, SMS, and SEC. I don't say specifically what level these people need to be at. I do believe they need to be more on the mid-tier to senior if you can find them.
Mm-hmm.
Good luck finding them. If you can't, this is something, especially if things start working and you figure out acquisition. I really, really, really think this is a great hire for someone outsourced or some sort of like individual person that's understanding the flows and running it.
Yeah.
Lastly is growth in commerce. This is another way of me fancy saying this is your dumbed down version of, and the person that I put in mind, they're not a CMO, but they're incredible at growth and they understand to speak the language of the platforms. This is what Shrey was. When we were working with Health Aid, that man knew exactly what he was doing. He wasn't a CMO, big talk, big things, but he was incredible at just understanding how the channels worked with each other with campaign.
Yep. So I want to say something that I hope will be controversial enough to make you fight me here. I believe that the first person that you should hire internally out of all of these is the bottom one, the growth / commerce. And let me give you my justification. A typical makeup of a brand in the $0 to $5 million range, let's call them 2 million, 3 million. I'll actually think of a real one and give you their makeup. Media buyer core will be like our team, right?
Yep.
And then multimedia designer and or organic paid editor may also be our team, because we might be able to cover everything they need, because they might just really need people to repurpose their content. So that organic paid editor, that might be us, right? Because that's what we provide as part of the media buyer, right? So that might be a vendor. That could all be taken care of potentially by a paid media agency. The designer of new things and or shooter of new things could potentially be taken care of by an agency, could potentially be taken care of by a service, right? Constant Creative, or Pencil, right? Or I don't know who's a competitor of Constant Creative since No Limit, something like that, right? Email SMS might also be a vendor, or it might be just like kind of it might be one of the co-founders, honestly, at 2 million, 3 million. It might be in any of these could be the co-founders, but a lot of times email SMS that's like one of the co-founders, or like one of the early stage. It's something that's covered by them. 3-4 million, maybe they're offloading it to external teams. So it's like all of that is taken care of externally a lot of the time, all the way till 5 million. The growth and commerce person, a good team, and I feel like this is just turning into a structured webinar. So like, that's not what I'm trying to do here, but like, we provide a sort of fractional head of growth type person. We call them a growth strategist. So at like 1 million, 2 million, 3 million, that whole thing is taken care of by a team. And that's actually more cost effective than you hiring, because at that stage, you don't know how to hire those. Like, you don't know how to hire those people at all. Around 5 million is when I think, 4 or 5 million is when you make that first hire, and it's that bottom one, that growth or commerce one, in most cases. I mean, I'm not going to make a sweeping generalization, but I don't know, controversial enough. Yeah. I mean, you're kind of laying out like, here's the team.
I can't even disagree with you on these ones, because like, there's a reason why I didn't say like, this is an in-house team, this is an out-house team, because we've watched teams like Movement Watches absolutely moon, and they owned one thing, the marketing. We've watched Ivory Ella that did one thing, owned product, and had agencies. So we've seen both operate at this place in a very fast manner. Yes, I think that was in heyday of D2C. I do think that their product right at the right time. But then I just go down the line of the brands that we've worked with in the past, whether it's Posh, whether it's Div, whether it's Snow, like they owned some areas of this. And if you are early to the game and you don't fully get it, the point of having an agency is to cut the learning curve. And look, we know where we're coming from. Totally. Negotiate terms down, go month to month, give them a 2-month. And if it doesn't work, do a gentleman's agreement and kind of work your way out of it. It's plenty of times we're chasing down collections too. Like, I'm not afraid to go to war, but I will tell you that if you don't know how to do it, these are the areas in which you want to focus on.
Yeah. And I think you brought up a good point, that it's core competency of founding team, right? If you and me, Nick, were to go co-found an e-commerce brand right now, we would build this whole thing in-house. We wouldn't hire a partner to do it, because we know we've hired enough of these people, found enough of these people, and know enough of these people that we'd be able to do it with maybe a combination of freelancers or in-house. We might not hire full-time in-house people.
Correct.
Right? Like, we would be able to do that. It's our core competency, is building teams like that and doing that kind of stuff ourselves, right? Like, so that's where we would own the marketing. That's what we would do. But if that's not your core competency, a lot of times early on, and that's those kinds of brands that we're working with, usually it's a founder that's not their core competency, and it's 1 or 2 vendors that's covering most or all of that.
100%. I completely agree with you. And then if I were to be like analyzing the brands that we have, or the area that we're which, then we move into that like 5-10 phase, and I'll talk about it from top down. And now I've had feedback on that, because I've done this talk before with a team that or a group of people that I really respect, and they started poking questions and things. And I hope that there are questions. I hope that the comments are popping up. I hope that I get back on Twitter after this and people are going like, wait, can you ask and elaborate more on this? Because I want to explore more of these thoughts, because I think it's extremely important for us to understand this, talk about this, and go through this, because a lot of people are not talking about this shit because it's still being developed, or they don't want to share it, and because it's for their own selfish needs. Okay.
Right.
You have influencer and talent. So a great team of ours that we've seen do incredible things at the Kinship Boys. We also ourselves built our own way of getting talent. We've seen some great people at the Mint Marketing. We've seen Josh out of Nashville do incredible things at Outreach. Influencer and talent, meaning I need people creating content for us, or I need a person to find people to put into my content. That's a full-time, if not heavily understanding VA that knows what they're doing and how they're doing it. That takes time. It's really difficult to get this. You can find it. There are agencies that specialize in this. Can you own that at this stage because you're needing more content, because you're shooting more things and you probably have more than one product working? That's why you need content at scale consistently. Creative strategist. This is still, I cannot wait to talk more about this at the Motion Summit coming up. This is a term that I'm not going to say we coined, but we definitely were early to the game on this.
No, everybody's saying it now, and I'm like, I feel like I said it to you. You must have tweeted it, and now everybody's hiring them.
I would love to claim that I have that much reach, but it's definitely something that it felt like we've been on this for quite a while. I will say this.
Yeah.
But the role of like, I know traffic and conversion, and I also know what needs to be shot and executed. Cool. I should be the person that leads this or discusses this. Oftentimes brands don't have this for 1 to 2 reasons. The first reason, they probably don't have a native in-house media buyer that's incredible in communicating what they want and why they want it. 2, their brand person or their creative person is probably too brand or too creative and came from the brand ritual. And they don't really know what's working or why it's working. That's probably what's happening.
Please make it all look like Olipop. Yeah.
Can you give me what is it? There was a great article, blanding.
The bland, yeah. Give me the bland ads, the blanding ads.
Drop me that bland. Okay. Then you have analytics and data. This role, this is something that when we acquired Agexa, I was super stoked on this one because they had a person, multiple people that like were so good at what they needed to get, or like, hey, I need these things to paint the story of what's happening, or at least show why the things that we said were going to happen cannot be possible. This is before we understood how well Triple worked or Ultimate or all these other analytical tools. Now you can get away with someone that's just focused on this and there's time spent in it, rather than the person spending their time on the media buying, but spending the time on the analyzing of the product selling, sell-through rates, metrics, et cetera, what's happening on the site. This is important. At this stage, everybody has to have it with the tools available. Community manager. Why I bring this up is because, and I actually think this could come sooner depending on how your company or type of org is built into this. And I know following the Avi boys for quite a while, following Posh for quite a while, their community drove so much iteration. And there's an early team doing this right now, which is a cookie company that I love and respect, Raise. These guys are building from the community. But this person has to understand a little bit of conversion, a little bit of communication, a little bit of copywriting, a little bit of like steering the narrative of what's happening. And they probably need to be adept with what's happening on customer service and that feedback of product. So this role is not just like, I post on Twitter or I post on TikTok or however, like this is a very quality, important role. Then we get a copywriter. Now, John, I could have put this at 0 to 5. I could have put this at 10 to 15. Why I put this at this moment is because I still stand behind, this is the time where things are starting to work. And when things are starting to work, especially at August 25th, 2022, 3:57 p.m. PST, things are difficult on platforms. And more than ever now, writing for conversion or convincing someone that their life is going to be better or not as shitty on a page or on an ad is going to take time, effort, planning. Avatar, right? What is the thing that you love to talk about that was such a great conversation is your halo effect. The avatar, the angle, the asset, the landing page, and the optimization. That's all driven from copy. Has to be, right?
Yeah. It's the offer, by the way. No, but
okay.
Yeah, totally. Yes. You're on such a roll. I can't believe I did that to you.
But this is, and then at the top, at the top where I put at the beginning is your PM, the comms manager. This person, right. Who's doing this inside the brand? Whose role, generally speaking, John, whose role is the one that's doing this? It's the marketing manager.
Yeah, it's like the growth strategist.
Why?
Right?
That shouldn't be doing.
It's like your head of growth who ends up becoming this project manager because they oversee everything and they touch everything and they set the KPIs. So they're the ones who can communicate. But like, one of the things early on that happened at Structured that I think was like a big unlock for us is we hired this, right? And we hired someone who is vastly overqualified. She's like incredible. She's honestly one of our best employees, and she's a Yale grad. But she wanted to leave her current opportunity. So we hired her as a project manager because she was like, yeah, I'll do whatever. I'll do it. Like things like managing your own calendar and like scheduling, coordinating calls with 3 people. And like, that's the kind of thing that your head of growth should not be doing, right? Like that's low leverage.
Time zones alone.
Right. That's low leverage. That's a project manager task, right? So that's, yeah, I mean, that actually just frees up people to look at stuff. But I did.
I want to reiterate this. Low impact, but incredibly important.
Yeah, necessary. I would call it necessary. It has to happen, right? Low leverage is what I said. So right. Not the high leverage activity for them. Being on the call, that's the high leverage activity for them. Going back and forth on, an email chain with 4 people to coordinate the call, not the high leverage activity.
This is the funny thing about this, the amount of times, and this is I've experienced this so aggressively in the amount and like this short span of period. It's August, and this is funny because this kind of happens all the time, but I just forget to remember the moment. We're right now in August. If you're an agency or a marketer or a brand right now, I just want I want to do a gut check for you. You're either shopping for another team or a new team. You're either fielding conversations like, is this what we're rolling into Q4 with? Like, is this what we're doing right now? This is, and I'm sitting going like talking to the team. I'm like, dude, inbound is kind of wild. And we're not doing much that's different. Well, we might be making more ads.
We're having Nikki Shacks on the pod, so there's that. So
I mean, when you start losing weight, people just start coming. Anyway,
people start coming.
But it is a thing that I'm going like. We all need to understand that it's not unique to our situation, and people are shopping, and there's movement happening in the market right now, and it's not because things aren't working or things are incredibly working. It's just. They're just window shop. They're just kicking tires.
Yep. So this is good. So when on the subject of shopping, on the subject of shopping teams, hiring teams, right? Because I actually wanted to go through that, and we can maybe come back to it depending on where our conversation goes here. But like, because what you just laid out, again, it's not like by the time you're at 10 million, you have 10 internal hires. Sometimes a vendor covers a lot of that, right? Or sometimes one person has to wear 2 hats for a while. Sometimes a founder wears some of those hats. Like that's just how it breaks out. But on this topic of hiring teams, shopping vendors, putting all of this, like assembling your squad, right? One thing that came up on Twitter today when we were talking about, hey, we're going to be doing this, was a good friend of ours, Mr. Ray Johnston. He tweeted to me like, what skills should they have? That, in case I don't know if you have it. There we go. Yeah, overlaid right there. So what skills should your team members have? Wartime versus peacetime. I think that is like a really good one right now, because the topic of this is recession proofing your marketing team, right? So we're talking about a wartime marketing team, whereas for the last 10 years, we've been building peacetime marketing teams, right? What skills will be less valuable and less useful in a recession? Most critical white space opportunity in a recession. And then that's like 4 questions. Then he told me like, you can pick whatever.
Way to really run it on, Ray.
Yes. Thank you. Cool. Yeah. You can drop that off, Casey. Casey's back. There we go. Thank you.
Can you ask it again? Cause I like blacked out.
Yeah. I'll read it again. So what skills, let's go one at a time here. When you're looking at these people, assessing them either as internal hires or as external vendors, what are the skills they should have, and what is like the wartime versus peacetime? Let's actually focus on that, since we're talking about recession proofing here. What's the difference on these teams that we're putting together? What are you looking for in peacetime? So what have we been looking for the last 5 years? What are you looking for in wartime, right? During a more tough economic period.
Peacetime first, correct?
Yes, go peacetime first.
Peacetime first. So this is basically the entire lifeline I've had as an entrepreneur. So I'll put it that way. And we've, our team is thick right now. We've gone through a couple businesses. And this is the type of leader. I think this is a reflection of the type of the leader I am currently. This is not an answer. I think if Jake was on this call with us, he'd answer this very differently. I just want to put that out there.
I'll probably answer differently, I'm going to guess. Go ahead. Yeah, but go ahead.
I agree with you. I need someone that can understand styles of feedback and they need to be so lack of ego that they can adapt the way that they speak to the person that's hearing the message. That's one. Two, I think they need to lead.
Go ahead. Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Two, I think they need to lead with way more, like, I'm going to say this, softness and beta-ness than an alpha, like a strong alpha aggression of pushing people over the line, pushing the thing over the line. They need to be a lot more in the listening stage. That's where I think peacetime really hits himself. Okay.
Yeah. TLDR, Nick hired me during peacetime, and then he was like, that is the opposite of what I want.
I did not like that.
Yeah. Can we get whatever the inverse of John is? Like, that's what we need more of.
Yeah, it's and look, I'm not going to don't get
when you have one. You only need one of those people. You know what I mean?
No, don't confuse combativeness and strong opinion with beta or
what I like to say is don't confuse meekness for weakness, right? That's
you
know, I'm talking about in like an older definition of the word meek, because that is what we use. That's like the current definition in society. But like the older definition of meek, it's like silently confident. You know, like I don't have to be outward. Like I can be confident and I can be sure, but I don't have to put it in your face.
Correct. And so sticking along the lines of peacetime hires, you don't have to hire somebody that has done it before, been there, done that. They can have they can have skill sets that would allow them to be great, but they don't necessarily have to be the one that had done it before. They have to be open for change and open for feedback. And I think that's honestly it, dude. I'll say that. Do you have one? You want to speak on this one?
That's a big one, right? So I think we've gotten away with a lot of hires. Peacetime. Maybe not a lot, right? I think we've gotten away with plenty of hires in peacetime who haven't done it before, or have minimal experience doing it, or came from an organization where they didn't really have to be that good at doing it.
Yep.
But they like knew how to push the buttons, and they have a good, like they have the good, like this, I don't want to call them soft skills, but the communicational EQ skills, social IQ skills that you were talking about, like they're good at that. And like, they don't necessarily have to have as good of like run traffic and get conversion skills. And that can kind of like be taught, and it's easier to hit it in peacetime.
This is absolutely, and I'll even go specific on media buyers. The media buyers that take it personally when things don't work right, when things are when their ROAS is their worth, you're like, dude, you haven't done this. Like, how long have you been doing this? Like that to me is something where people need to realize that you are not like that. Go through some times where you don't win a lot, and you still have to collect a paycheck, and you still have to feel like you're worthy of that paycheck. That's a different time.
Yes. No. So yeah. Wartime skills, both soft and firm, hard. I don't feel great saying either of those words.
I get you. So wartime soft skills, like feedback, you have to just crave it. You have to eat it. Like it has to be said right to you. You'd be like, I'm so grateful. Thank you so much for giving me that. No matter how terrible that I am or whatever it just happened, you have to be able to take that, and it cannot make you. It could only make you better. It cannot define everything that you are. It could only be taken in. That's one. Two, you have to already know how to do it. You have to clearly explain what you've done before. And I'll share this one. There's a very, very high level person in our space, that I have. This is the dream person that Nick would go work for. Like if I were to leave my companies and go do it, I would go work for this individual. I've seen what he's built. He's incredible. He's kind. He leads with a heavy hand. And he asked me 7 questions, and we talked for an hour and a half. And he's like, I just wanted to know that you've actually done it before. So he knew the questions to ask, start to finish to end. That is the type of thing that I think is incredible. The person in the wartime that you want is the one that's actually already done it before and understands that a lot of this right now, especially what we're talking about, is sustaining and growing during a time of war. They need to know and keep an eye toward generating revenue. And it must make us money, or it must save us money. That is something that has to happen.
Yeah, I'm going to add a couple of things.
Please.
Wartime soft skills. and this is actually, I'm going to reiterate just something you said and use the sports analogy because it's ModCom and I have to. You have to have a shooter's mindset, right? So a shooter's mindset, meaning I don't care how many shots I've missed. You know what I mean? Like you don't even remember the misses. Like that, like and you have to, so I'm going to actually go out on a limb and say, I do not think that Nick Shackelford would be a good wartime employee. You're a good wartime leader, but I don't think you'd be a good wartime employee. I think you're a good peacetime employee because I think you have to have had losses, even if the losses were in peacetime. Like I've worked on projects that like just, and you probably have, right? But like I've worked on projects that just, they literally had no hope, right? And I was like, all right, let me just grind out as hard as I can, you know, and even in peacetime, I'm not going to make this thing work. I know it, you know, but I'm going to try as hard as I can and I'm not going to let it get to me. So people like that, and I'm like sitting here being like, I'm a better wartime than you are. But like literally, like you've had so many, you've actually had a very hard time understanding why we're not hitting home run after home run after home run when you've stepped out. Like, you're like, why isn't it happening anymore? And I'm like, dude, it's not peacetime anymore. Right. Like it's just, and like, I kind of just already felt that or knew that because I'd had periods like that even in peacetime. So like, that's what I kind of think. Like, I think that you're a good wartime leader because you're very understanding. You're very open to feedback. You trust your team. And a lot of wartime leaders, a lot of peacetime leaders are bad wartime leaders because they don't do that. But as a team member, I think it's like, I think you would be like, man, why am I missing so many shots? You know?
Dude, you're so correct. And I didn't take any other way other than like, you're absolutely right on this one, because for one, I got very fortunate. I think my entire career of where we're at now, bro, it's I'm very grateful. I'm aware. I get it. I've won the entire way through. Like from the very first time I started running a fidget spinner all the way until like, I can tell you every single product, brand, person, thing that I've won on that's led me to this point, and teams I've been on. I've been on a lot of winning teams. So I fully agree with this. I've also done enough to know who should be there, who shouldn't be there. And I 100% agree with you. I'd be a terrible wartime employee, but I sure as hell would know how to lead better than most of these other people in space, because a lot of these people haven't done it themselves at various levels.
Yep. I'm going to hit one more thing because this made me think of this: wartime leadership. And I'm going to actually group both wartime leadership in with like a head of growth type of person who is managing vendors and managing team members. A poor wartime leader is going to be someone who, like you, is flabbergasted. Like, why aren't we hitting last year's numbers? Why is our year over year CAC up so much? All of this stuff, right? And is their first instinct, number one instinct, is to say, must be team, must be a people problem, not a platform problem, or not a product problem, right? That's their first instinct. And a lot of peacetime folks are like that, because in peacetime, if you weren't having success, like, yeah, maybe you could have had like a really bad product, but like, let's say you got to 5 or 10 million. If you weren't having success, it probably was the team, right? Yep. In all honesty, like, there's a lot of bad teams that had fine results during peacetime, right? And so I think those leaders are good during peacetime because they'll be like, yeah, you know what, like, let me not get so married to this team. But during wartime, they'll end up turning over vendors and turning over team members too much, like you never get any traction, right?
I agree with you. This is great. I think we can go on this all day. I know I have 2 more things I want to show. Yep, 2 more things I think is important for us to talk through. So this is the last one. So again, you're not at the 10 to 15 stage. I need to have all 15 of these people. Pick and choose these are the areas and the roles that I believe are important that need to be considered at these roles. You don't have to own or have these ones. I'm going to be very clear on that already, because at this point you're looking at a $400,000 payroll.
Yeah.
At this point, at 10 to 15, I think it's important for us to start considering whether you're hiring consistently or having it in-house, a video and photographer full-time. This is someone like you're probably creating consistently. You already have a pipeline of creators kind of giving you content for you. And I think it's at this time, you're planning campaigns across multiple channels, and you're probably pushing into retail at some place. You're probably doing something along these lines to get more content that's needed. And do you really want to drop 3K, 5K, 10K every single time you're doing a production run? Affiliate program manager. This is something that I do think is important to bring at this time. Kind of back to what we talked about early on of someone driving revenue. You're probably looking at new channels. You're probably looking at new regions. You're probably looking to expand to another country or at least test the waters here. Someone that's running this program on finding sites for content, finding sites for potential people running your offer. Junior discipline hire. This is what I like to call, I probably already have a media buyer on my core channels, and I need someone to start learning auxiliary channels. I need to dabble into Pinterest. I need to dabble into TikTok. I need to dabble into Bing. I need to dabble into native. Somebody that you can afford to have on the team that's testing, and it's more of like an assassin that's going to learn something specific.
Yep.
Last thing I bring. Yes, John?
No, that's it. Go ahead.
Last time bringing in a developer, like you most likely have multiple sites running. You need to kind of be a little bit more dynamic. You're probably on Shopify with a little bit of customization rather than just leveraging the shit ton of apps and slowing down your site. You might want to have a couple pages being built on Unbalanced or any other service or provider. And also you have an art director. And this is something that I could have took this off or left this completely gone, but you have probably worked with enough vendors. You probably have some sort of brand guideline or some sort of deck. At this stage, you'd be shocked at the amount of people don't have this for us to play with. Your typeface, your fonts, your style, the words you can or can't use. I think it's important to bring this one into play.
Okay. Yeah. So I think I'm going to add to this instead of subtracting to it that at 10 to 15, because we've been addressing brands that are digitally native, D2C native specifically. At 10 or 15, you maybe and probably 80% of the time, 80% of the brands should be looking at either hiring in-house or vendor. I would start with a vendor if you don't know how to hire this person in-house. Marketplaces and probably retail. Unless there's just like no possibility of that for your product, or you've specifically decided not to do that, or whatever, you have some kind of reasoning there. You really should be diversifying into omni-channel sales channels. And then I'm going to hit a couple others here, and I'm going to say community manager. And I would almost put this person as like community manager / omni-channel sales teams, which is super weird. But the reason I'm saying it is because if you need a community manager, it's because you have a product that a community builds around and you have other products that you want to sell them, right? Like, or you want them to be referring people to it, right? Like that the past customers like really are important to you. If you're Yeti microphones, you do not need a community manager really, right? Like not at 5 to 10 million at the level Yeti's at maybe, but like not at 5 to 10 million. What you need there is instead an omni-channel salesperson, somebody who's going to get you into retail, someone who's going to get you into Amazon, etc. Right? Because you have essentially one SKU, one product, people are going to buy it, and then they're not really going to buy anything else from you. So that investment in a community manager isn't really going to serve you until you're like really, really huge. But the investment into an omni-channel salesperson is. Now, if you're a apparel brand, that community manager, they're going to serve you a lot more. You're going to get a way better ROI on them than you are on the omni-channel salesperson. Those are my only adds to this. And again, a lot of times one vendor might cover a whole bunch of these rectangles,
I get you. The funny thing is like, and this was the one slide that when I did the presentation, everybody was like, so like how many of these, which do I do? And that answer is too difficult. And I think in the next thought work, I will go down of like, at this stage, you should do this. At this stage, here's who you need to have in-house. Here's who you should probably think about doing out-house. And I have this kind of prepared, but I don't want to go on this one fully baked in at. But the last one I'll talk about is kind of like a core concept that James, first off, James taught me. James, like, this is something you need to understand where you play, where do you want to lie? And
James is not everybody who, hey man, I've got a following too. It's not everyone so some people might not know who James is. I know your people know who James is.
So James is my partner in Geek Out. Geek Out's our events that we do, and James is a little bit more of a veteran around the space. That's done a lot of crazy stuff, and it's mainly in the traffic time. And he's worked with a lot of people around the world. And to me, this time is something that I think a lot of us need to think about: where you run, where you lie, and what happens. And it's a theory of nationalists versus assassins. Here's the story. So when we when we are very proud of who we are and very proud of what we stand for and who we work for. We are a nationalist. If I stand beside my structure team, I stand beside Constant, I will go above and beyond and do what is necessary and then some to win and keep it consistent. That's someone that lives and breathes for the brand that's in house, right? They are for the brand. We all wear the same jersey. The name might be different on the back, but the front's the brand. Okay. Then you have an assassin. They are motivated by cash. They are motivated by the opportunity, and they are motivated by the kill.
They're the dude you're signing to a 1-year deal, to try and win a championship. Yep.
This is not your franchise quarterback. This is the person that's like, I need this thing done, and I need us to get here by the time you're done. Thank you so much. You're going to be rewarded handsomely for this. When you were looking and thinking about who should my team be, or who should I be building alliances or support systems and processes for, the thought of, is this my nationalist or is this my assassin, needs to be really strategically thought through. And this is, use the brand owner, use the agency owner, use the person that's thinking through exactly, am I building routines and systems around this person? And this has been the thing that I sit here and it really, 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 really messes with me, especially when I look at my orgs, especially as I look at the other teams of like, who am I needing to build systems and processes around, or who am I needing to replace, or who am I needing to put a different piece around to make sure that I get the most out of that one? And I know this one. This is the role that I play in a lot of the organizations, and I've talked about this. My role, my core role, is to generate partnerships, revenue, and continue to find ways for us to continue to grow and win at all costs. That's Nick's role. So the pieces that I need around me, the assassins, as me being the nationalist, need to be the person that's incredible at processes, needs to be the person that's incredible at supporting what has to happen. That's why Jake, James, yourself, and these other individuals, they know how to play with me. Like the role that I have, the system, the scheme that I run, it's really important for me to know, and those around me to know. That's the best way we can get the most out of that man, so that when it's time, we know what to do and we know the route that he's going to run. Because he'll get us there, but we just need to know how to do it. And you have to do the same exact thing with your people during this time right now, because it's been fine. It's been fantastic, but we're going to get tried. And if you look at your group and you look at your people, the sooner you make the decision on, is this person my nationalist? Is this team my nationalist? Or is this person my assassin? Or is this team my assassin? You're going to move very differently.
Yeah, I think the introspection around yourself and your core competencies is actually the most important thing you said there. Not necessarily, I mean, your company is probably a reflection of yourself, unless you are 15, and you're in your Series C or something like that, right? Then maybe it might not be anymore. But like, especially for you, if you're bootstrapped or even Series A, whatever, your company's probably a reflection of yourself, and the strengths and core competencies that your company has is probably a reflection of yours. And then, like what you just said there, Nick, how do you figure out, where do I need nationalists? Where do I need assassins? You don't do it by looking at the business. You actually kind of do it by looking introspective at yourself. So like you need nationalists in positions where you need someone who actually just understands you. Like when you say something, they go, okay, I think what you mean is, right? Yes. Like when you like, and because you're like a clear person. Like a lot of people probably don't know this. You're like, they probably think like, oh, Nick, he's like, it's so clear when he teaches. In the moment, you are not, right? Like you're in the moment clarity. You don't have the right words for the thing you mean a lot, right? Yep. So that's where you need nationalists, is people who are like, I'm delegating an outcome to this person, and I need them to kind of like be able to know what I mean, or over time they'll figure it out, right? Like that's what they're thinking about. Where you need assassins is exactly what you said. If I just need you to build something, right? Like physical, like a process or something like that. Physical is a weird way to put it. Physically, virtually physical. If I just need you to build something like a process or like a, or whatever, that's where you need assassins, right? Like I can give you anything you can give specific instructions on. That's where you need assassins. So that's like a very introspective thing that you found, is that you're like, where I need a nationalist is people who know what I'm trying to say, right? And where I need assassins is where I can give them a very direct instruction. And I would say that is the biggest tip that, like, I would say, like, as you're thinking about nationalists, where do I need nationalists in there? Where do I need assassins? That's the first place to build around, is yourself. Like, how are you removing yourself as the bottleneck in your business? So looking at being very introspective and honest with yourself about what your strengths and weaknesses are. I think that's like probably the way you figure that out.
You're absolutely correct. And I know we're coming up on an hour right now, and I think this could go so much deeper. So I'm gonna call it right now. I know we want to keep going, but we're gonna go part 2, because what we'll build next is who should be Nick. I'm at that 1 to 5 million range. Who do I need? Just, I understand the roles I need to think through. Tell me what I need. Tell me what I need on the in-house. Tell me what I need on the outhouse.
Yes, the outhouse. Go with it. Confidence.
I'm gonna eat it.
Give me that shooter's confidence.
5 to 10. What's in-house? What's outhouse? Where am I going? Where's the porta potty? Who do I need outside of this bad boy?
Who do I need to stick out in the porta potty?
And then on the 10 to 15, we'll go through that as well. So I'm grateful. I hope this hit home for a lot of people. I cannot wait to hear the discussion around this stuff. Yeah. John, Casey, thank you guys so much. Let's run this back.
Absolutely. Parting shot. I will do the parting shot. I'll take it. If I were to kind of TLDR this episode and say, hey, here's what you need to learn. First of all, I have one parting shot. Casey, I figured out a way for us to monetize this podcast. We'll have Nick on, and every time he name drops somebody that's a company he's invested in or that he owns, he has to pay us a sponsorship fee. So
there we go.
Us for like Motion, Geek Out, like all. But I mean, you only invest in own companies you truly believe in. So that's the caveat there. The TLDR here is honestly like that. What I would say is like identifying hats is important. People, vendors, founders, internal team members can wear multiple hats. It's okay to do. The problem with wearing multiple hats is most people don't do the work of identifying which hat they're wearing when they're doing work. So they don't do the job of identifying who would be the hire, who do I hire to take off some of this work, right? Because they're like, I don't know, I do so much. How could I just need to hire another me. You hear that all the time, right? Could I just duplicate myself? It's because you're not identifying the hat you're wearing. So that's essentially what you've done here is you're like, here, let me identify all the hats for you so that you can see which ones you're wearing. You could hire a part-time person to do it, a freelancer to do it. You could hire an agency or a vendor that can maybe take off a few of those hats. Right. And so that's the TLDR here is that as you're looking at this, it's not 15 hires, it's 15 hats, right? The hats could be worn by however many people. But that's kind of like up to you and how much bandwidth each person has and how much you're overloaded and where the bottlenecks are. That'd be my TLDR here. Anything to add, Nick?
Oh, honestly, because this simplification of the roles that are needed or necessary based upon the amount of brands and the areas that we've been focused on for the past 10 plus years at this point, you have to identify first before you can address. And so I think the identification of that on stage 1 is important so that when we get into stage 2 of like, okay, thank you for identifying it for me. Now, what do I do? What and why? What and why? What do I do?
Where?
Where, and what do I do? Why do I do it? And where do I find it? It's something that I think is really important for people to go. And I will clap back on you one of these things on this podcast, the clarity in which I've spoken and the cleanliness of the words.
Yeah, that's because you've had a chance to prepare. These were presentation. When you have a chance to prepare, you're very, very clear. And that's why most people forget. It's just when you're in the moment trying to we've talked about this before.
We got thank you guys.
Absolutely. I think clarity is one of your best things when you're teaching. So Nicholas Shackelford, Nicky Shacks, Poppy Shack, Shack Attack. I don't know if I missed any of them. Thank you for being on. Always a pleasure to have you. You definitely, we're going to make you like a honorary host here pretty soon. Once we've had you got to get 5 times and then you get like the 6th time you're an honorary host.
Then we give you a little pin you can put on your shirt.
We have a part 2 coming. We have to explain that.
Let's do it.
Cannot wait.
Yes, we will have a part 2 coming. Anyway, drop in the comments wherever you're seeing this. If you're seeing it on Twitter, if you're seeing it on YouTube, wherever you're seeing us, drop in the comments. What should we cover in part 2? Like what questions after watching all of this? There's been some people here watching live the whole time. Like after watching all of this, are you like, I can build $1 billion company now? Probably not. You probably still have questions. So drop in the comments what questions you still have. What do we need to cover in part 2? Nick, thank you for being on. Big shout out and thank you to our sponsor, to our sponsor, Pencil. That's trypencil.com. Use code ModCom 15% off. Casey, say the YouTube things.
Yeah, guys, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell icon to get notifications whenever we drop new content onto the channel. Make sure you tune into all our videos. You never know when we're going to have somebody like Shaq on. Thanks for coming on, Shaq. John, thank you for keeping up with him. You know, one quick thing on that TLDR, I just want to say, if you are somebody who wears a lot of hats, going back even to our prior agency days, John, I think one thing that I learned is that even not being that main person who's wearing a ton of hats already, you can help that person identify what hats they're wearing a little bit. Because if you haven't developed that view, that can be tough to do. So look to your right-hand man. You know, now I think that's going on with Shaq and John a little bit with Instructured. So yeah, trust the people around you, those loyalists. They can help you out in that way too. So thanks again, guys. And ModCom, until next time, we'll see you.